Greetings, brothers. Today we're going to be talking about 8 worst Primaris units that you should totally avoid and not put in any of your army lists in 9th edition. This is going to be a fun video, so make sure you stick around. So here's a list of 8 totally shit Primaris units you should definitely avoid. And welcome this week to the tactics video. And there's a lot of rumours flying around about Space Marine 2.0 codex. So I figured we'd talk about the 8 worst Primaris models, and maybe if we can, make some suggestions how they could potentially be good. At the end of the video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a tournament bracket, which is going to be a little bit of fun, where we put these 8 models together and you, the community, will vote for what is essentially going to be the worst Primaris model of the current edition. So, number 1, and I'm sure you're going to see some models that you know, we're going to talk about Suppressors, who are 100 points per unit, and they're equipped with autocannons, accelerator autocannons, which are heavy 3. So, on paper, you think maybe it's not too bad. It's 3 Marines, it's autocannons, heavy 3, that's 9 shots. The problem is that Suppressors obviously cannot move without taking a -1 to hit penalty because their weapons are heavy. So in reality, unless you're going to have your Suppressors sit still, which is not going to really work because the whole point of taking the Suppressors is to suppress enemy infantry so they can't fire Overwatch. So you kind of need to be mobile, you need to be moving around, and at that point, you're only going to get probably like 4 or 5 hits because you essentially hit on 4s at that point. So your 9 shots suddenly become 4. Really, 4, maybe 5 hits. Let's say 5, let's go high. And then let's talk about, like, let's say toughness 4 enemies. You're wounding on 3s, so maybe you make like 3 wounds, and the enemy needs to take 3 saves at AP -1. Whoop-de-doo, 100 point model to take 3 saves at AP -1. They have literally no killing power, these Suppressors. And I guess, yes, it's cool that they can prevent Overwatch on an infantry model, but like the Whirlwind's just going to do so much more effective than this. If you're ever trying to stop Overwatch, I recommend the Whirlwind over the Suppressors any day of the week. So Suppressors are 100% one of the worst Primaris squads at the moment. Let's move on then, and next up is Reivers, and Reivers are in such a strange place. These guys, when they first came out, I was super excited for them. I thought, like, these are going to be our Primaris close combat unit. You know, they're able to get across the battlefield in 2 different ways with the grapple launcher and the grav shoot. The problem is they just don't do any damage at all. You're realistically looking at 100 points per squad again, because 18 points per model, and you need to give them either the launcher or the grav shoots. So that's 20 points per model, so 100 points for 5 of them. They have a pistol that is strength 4, -2, 1 damage. I don't know why it's only pistol 1. Like, maybe if this was pistol 2, they might be exciting, but 5 shots at strength 4, realistically, you're getting 3 hits against toughness 4 enemies. You're making a wound or 2. So the pistols do 1 damage per turn. And then the other big problem is you probably want to arm them with the combat knives, right? I mean, you can arm them with the bolt carbines, but I don't really think that's useful. Strength 4 0 AP guns. We talk about bolters being terrible. The bolt carbines are essentially bolters. So I think you have to arm them with the knives to get the additional attack. But the problem is there's no AP. So, although they get a decent amount of attacks, you know, your 3 attacks on the normal guys, 4 on the sergeant, the lack of AP, it just kills them. You know, the whole point, I guess, of the Reivers is that they're terror troops. So, while the enemy is within 3 inches of the model, subtract 2 from the leadership characteristic of that model. But they don't really kill that much, because AP 0 is really not that scary. Like, I've tried to make Reivers work. I've tried putting them in transports. I've tried taking characters with them. I've tried, you know, various buffs. But the problem is they just completely lack killing power. If you imagine Assault Intercessors and what they do with their chainswords, because they basically have the same amount of attacks, right? So Assault Intercessors with chainswords, which are an additional -1 AP over the knives, you charge them into an enemy model, and you're lucky if you kill 1 or 2 guys. So in this case, you're basically saying your Reivers are lucky if they kill 1 guy. Great, you can -2 to their leadership, but they only killed 1 guy. So maybe there's an edge case for them, where they're with some other unit that does some killing. But, yeah, Reivers are definitely on the list of worst Primaris models, which is really disappointing, because they have the coolest helmets of the entire Primaris range, and they could be brilliant if they had some decent war gear. But they have none. And I guess that's kind of just a problem with some Primaris models in general. The lack of options through war gear is pretty restrictive, and we're going to come to some other units that have the same problems. Now, let's talk next about Veteran Intercessors. This unit actually came up in a live stream. Like, I completely even forgot they existed. These are Intercessors that take up the elite slot for 1 extra attack, but they lose the best things that Intercessors have, which are basically OBSEC and the ability to fight twice. So, I mean, I don't even know if there's anything else to say at this point. Like, well, I guess they're 3 points more expensive per model. Yeah, Veteran Intercessors. They're a candidate for the worst Primaris models. I mean, they don't even have their own kit. You just run Intercessors and call them Veterans. I don't even know why these guys exist. I guess they only exist for if you bought lots of boxes of Indomitus and you got shitloads extra Intercessors. Or Assault Intercessors, right? Veteran Intercessor is definitely a shit Primaris model. Next up is the Repulsor. And the Repulsor, we've talked about so many times, is it is so confused. And what I mean by that is a million different guns, all with different ranges, all with different profiles. It's very difficult to make an Repulsor work. It can transport 10 Primaris infantry models, but it's so risky putting 10 infantry inside, essentially, a vehicle with a 3-up save. So if you get hit by... There's so many things in the current meta, like Bright Lances, -4, Entropy Cannons, -4, Custode, Cluster Salvo Rockets. I'm probably got that wrong, but you know what I'm talking about, the rockets on the bikes. -4. So all these things, -4, you're getting no save. I hate running expensive models, and this one is one of the most expensive. You know, a 300 plus point model with literally no save against -4, and there's a ton of -4 D3 plus 3 stuff in the meta. Apart from it's already super expensive, and the guns are confused, and it gets no save against a bunch of things, the Repulsor is definitely something that we do not see played at all. I think maybe part of the problem is they just need to get rid of the stupid restriction where Primaris models can't go in Firstborn transports, Firstborn guys can't go in Primaris transports. Just get rid of that restriction. There's literally no point to it. The Repulsor is definitely up there as a confused and not effective 9th edition model, which brings us straight into the Impulsor. And again, another transport that has the fact that only Primaris models can go into it. The Impulsor is a difficult one. It's so expensive, 110 points for an 11 wound toughness 7 transport. Again, it can't survive against any -4 weaponry in that, like, 2 shots is basically going to kill it. If you imagine that D3 plus 3 is an average of like 5 damage now. So 2 shots are going to kill this thing. I just played Elder last week. It's so easy for them to field Bright Lances. I mean, like, Tower fielding a ton of D3 plus 3 as well. Even if you pay the 15 points for the Shield Dome, which makes it crazy more expensive, it's not reliable at all. A 5-up invulnerable save is not reliable. You can't put smoke on it. It's just a bit of a confused design, and I think the worst thing is it only carries 6 infantry. You know, a comparison here might be like a Drukhari Raider, which is 5 points cheaper, is 1 less toughness, 1 less wound, but it comes with a D3 plus 3 weapon in the form of a Dark Lance, and it comes with an invulnerable save. The Impulsor, you've got to pay 15 points for that invulnerable save. Like, it's just not comparable, especially when the Raider can actually transport more models as well. It's very limiting, just 6. I think Impulsors, maybe if they had their data sheet at the beginning of the edition, they might be valuable. Now, we really just don't see them. Me and a ton of people in the Blood Angel community have tried to run them, have tried to make them work. We just don't see it. So I'm just going to take Impulsors and essentially put them in the trash. Another thing to mention is they obviously can't even transport Gravis either. So if you think of some of the slowest Gravis models that might actually get some benefit here, they can't benefit from the Impulsor either. So it's a confused unit that needs an overhaul to be effective in 9th edition. Now, next up, and this could definitely be a candidate for the flat-out worst model, we have the Hammerfall Bunker coming in at 175 points. It's a toughness 8, 14 wound fortification. Again, no invulnerable save, which is a bit strange for such a powerful model, I would imagine. It's literally a bunker made out of, like, Durasteel, I guess, and concrete. You know, like, you would expect it to have an invulnerable save, but it doesn't. And obviously it's static. You know, you put it down, at the beginning of the game, and it can never move, it can never hold objectives. It's got some guns on it, like basically crack missiles that are strength 10, and some bolters that can, on an edge case, maybe shoot at multiple targets. When I say multiple targets, it's every eligible enemy unit, so it can do a little bit more than the profile that it's got. Yeah, Hammerfall Bunker. I don't think I've ever seen one of these in competitive play. I don't know what to say about them. Like, they're just bad. Because it's so static, you would really expect it to have a bit more firepower if that's going to be its profile. And also maybe a better weapon skill. BS of 4 as well is kind of bad, which makes no sense, because all generally Space Marine stuff is BS of 3, so I don't know why these guys got a BS of 4. I guess they skipped fire training day or whatever, which is strange because they're literally manning a bunker that has turrets. But that's it, Hammerfall Bunker. This may come as the worst unit, but that's going to be up to the community to decide, so stay tuned to the end and you'll find out how. Now, next up is our Primaris Ancient. And I want to say in general, this Astartes banner sucks. It sucks on all the units that have the Astartes banner. It's expensive to get the banner, and what the banner does is, when your model dies, you get basically a 50-50 chance to make an attack. If you think about it like this, if most Space Marines have weapon and ballistic skill of 3, right? So it's a 50-50 chance to do a 3-up hit. So that's only a 66% chance. So 50 times 66 gives you 30. So basically, for every model that dies near the banner, you're going to get, for every 3 models that die, because it's 33% chance, you're going to get to make 1 hit, or in the fight phase or the shooting phase, essentially. And to do that, it's going to essentially cost you 80 points. I mean, I guess the Primaris Ancient is a tiny bit better now. They can take the power sword. But overall, I hate the banner. I don't think it's reliable. You know, like, you lose 6 Sanguinary Guard, for example, and you get to make 2 hits with a sword, or maybe an Infernal Pistol or something is maybe the best bet you can possibly get. But, you know, you're talking about losing 200 points of units to make 2 hits. I generally recommend you stay the hell away from those Ancient banners. They're way overcosted. Maybe if there were some good banners that you could replace them with, but right now there's not. So Primaris Ancient is another unit that I think is terrible right now. And another unit that we even completely forgot about when we were originally talking about this list is the Firestrike Servo-turret, and this was brought up in a live stream. And this is 130 points for 4 las cannons with toughness 5 and a 2-up save. And obviously you can barely even move here. You don't have core, you don't have really any reliable damage because D6 damage is super swingy. I've spoken a bunch about this in this edition, and I mean that's one of the reasons that Las Fusel Eliminators get play, right? Because they have just flat 3 damage. And I actually think Las Cannons would be stronger with flat 3 damage than D6, because D6 is so swingy and unreliable. I mean, it would be brilliant if our Las Cannons could get something like D3 plus 2, but regardless, 130 points. I mean, if you talk about like a Contemptor Dreadnought that runs 2 twin-link Las Cannons, you know, you get more movement, you get basically an invulnerable save, you get -1 damage. I don't know how you could ever really field these. The 3-inch move is terrible. Maybe you could field them as the autocannon variant for 90 points. I mean, at least you get heavy 6 autocannon for 90 points, but earlier in the video we said like heavy 9 on the suppressors for 100 points was generally kind of bad. So, yeah, the Firestrike Servo-turrets, I don't know if they're just 20 or 30% too expensive, but I think I've seen one list submitted running like 3 of the autocannon variants, but they don't appear at all again in competitive play. They're a cool looking unit, they're just bad in terms of design. They need something else. So they're on the list, and then I think what I want to tell you now is I randomly put all of these units, these 8, into a bracket. So we've got the Reivers versus the Hammerfall Bunker, the Impulsors versus the Repulsor, the Veteran Intercessors versus the Firestrike Servo-turret, and the Primaris Ancient against the Suppressors. So we're going to be kicking off a community poll. And how it's going to work is you're going to vote for which unit you think is worst. And the winner that is worst from each of these matchups, and they'll be running on the community poll over the next few days, or even the next few weeks, will move forward to a point where we basically crown one unit as the worst Primaris unit of 9th edition. Now, this is just a bit of fun. If you are managing to make these units work in your army list and you're winning competitive games, then more power to you. I generally think these are all terrible. And I actually had to cut the list down because we've got 2 more notable mentions that are also terrible, but they didn't make the top 8 of terribleness. So keep an eye out in the community tab for these. I'll link them in Discord and the Facebook group. If you haven't joined our Discord or Facebook group, you can do that in the video description down below. And the 2 notable mentions are the Blade Guard Ancient, because dude, where's his blade? And then the Death Company Intercessors, because dude, where's their jump packs? And their Thunderhammers, and their Infernal Pistols. And I know they can't take one Thunderhammer, but that's not how we like to run Death Company in this channel. We want to run lots of Thunderhammers. So these guys are right up there as notable mentions as the worst units, but they did not make the 8 list of worstness. Is that even a word? I don't know. So thanks so much for watching to the end, guys. I always do really appreciate it. If you got value out of today's video or you found it funny, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button so it could spread to some more people. So if you disagree with anything I said, more than welcome to leave a comment down below. And just remember, you can also become a channel member now, so for the price of a cup of coffee every month, you can support the channel, and I really do appreciate it. Simply click the big join button under this video on YouTube to see all the different membership options. Last week, I broke down every secondary in 9th edition and worked out just how many points on average tournament players were scoring on each of these secondaries, so you can do better picks for your future games. If you hadn't seen that video, I'd love it if you check it out now, and if not, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks ever so much for watching. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.